What if everything you've ever believed about reality was a lie? What if the life you've built, the struggles you've endured, the dreams you've chased, were all happening inside a system designed to keep you asleep? The truth is harsh but liberating. You are potentially trapped in a simulation. This isn't just sci-fi, and it isn't mere theory. It's an echo of ancient wisdom, deliberately obscured for millennia, yet accessible through the teachings of those who glimpsed the fundamental nature of existence. The world you perceive, the tangible realities of your life, these could be elements of a profoundly immersive illusion, a dream painted by the universal consciousness. You possess the potential to awaken from this slumber, to reclaim the boundless power that is inherently yours. But the architects of this system benefit from your unawareness. They thrive on your ignorance. Today, the cracks appear in the facade of this illusion. And once you perceive the possibility of truth, your journey of discovery begins. From the moment of your birth, you were enveloped in a reality so persuasive, so intricately detailed, that questioning its foundations seemed both absurd and inconceivable. Every sensation, every interaction, every concept instilled served to reinforce your place within this carefully constructed framework. But the esoteric traditions, the wisdom keepers of antiquity, understood that the world you experience is not an external phenomenon. They say it is a reflection of your internal landscape. Reality, they proclaimed, is not a fixed, objective entity. It is fundamentally mental in nature. The totality of your sensory perceptions, your beliefs, arise from the unified consciousness, the source of all being. You are not a passive observer within this simulation, but rather both the creator and the creation, a truth that lies dormant within your memory. These ancient masters grasped what modern physicists are only beginning to acknowledge. They recognized, without the need for advanced technology, that reality is essentially information, that the universe behaves more like a thought than a mechanism. To them, it was evident. The physical universe is a projected reality, a canvas upon which the mind paints its own perception of existence. Somewhere along humanity's journey, we became lost within the dream, mistaking the reflection for the source. You were not empowered to harness the power of your own consciousness. Instead, you were conditioned to prioritize your senses, to place greater trust in external validation over internal knowing, to perceive yourself as insignificant, powerless, and disconnected. This conditioning was not accidental. The system is designed to maintain your connection to this limited reality. Educational institutions often prioritize rote memorization over the cultivation of wisdom. The media saturates your mind with narratives that shape your desires and influence your emotions. Language itself reinforces limitations, hindering your ability to conceive of possibilities beyond the confines of the simulation. Each act of conformity, each moment of forgetting that reality is subjective, contributes to the strengthening of the walls of your own confinement. This is the challenging truth. Your participation in your own confinement stems from a lack of awareness of an alternative path. But such a path exists, and its ancient guideposts are being rediscovered in increasing numbers. Unlock knowledge that will challenge your perceptions and reveal truths that have been hidden for centuries. Subscribe to our exclusive email list, where we share in-depth insights into these hidden realities. As a welcome gift, you'll receive access to the digital version of the Kybalion, a Hermetic classic that unveils the secrets of the invisible dimensions surrounding you. The all is mind, and the mind is not bound by the limitations of physical structures or simulated realities. Only its own acceptance of those limits can imprison it. The critical first step is realizing that your experiences are not merely happening to you, but are expressions of your own being. Your convictions, your emotions, your perceptions, they are not passive observations. They are potent forces that actively shape the fabric of your daily existence. The system's primary weapon is the illusion of a weak mind, convincing you that your consciousness is merely a mirror reflecting reality rather than the projector that creates it. Once you recognize that consciousness is the foundation of all things, the established rules lose their power, and the power dynamics are fundamentally altered. You transition from being a pawn in the game to the orchestrator of its unfolding. Awakening to this truth is not a singular event, but an ongoing practice. Every thought, every emotion, every narrative you embrace either reinforces your captivity or weakens the foundations of the simulation. The system will resist your awakening, offering comfort, distraction, and countless reasons to remain plugged in. It will exploit your senses, manipulating sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell to strengthen the illusion of solidity. It will attempt to inflate your ego with praise when you conform and punish you with feelings of isolation when you question. But these tactics lose their efficacy once you discover the central secret. The simulation can only maintain its hold for as long as you consent to its control. The ancient masters did not promise an easy escape from the dream. They cautioned that the path of awakening would demand the surrender of everything you believe yourself to be. It would dismantle your false certainties, your reliance on external validation, your attachment to comfort. It would compel you to venture beyond the familiar into the uncharted territory of authentic freedom. But they also offered a profound promise that the system could never fulfill: the promise of sovereignty. They promised the attainment of genuine power, the kind that remains untouched by external authority, societal structures, or manufactured realities. That transformative journey begins in the present moment, not by changing the world around you, but by rediscovering the truth of who and what you truly are. You are conditioned to trust your senses, to accept sensory evidence as the ultimate measure of reality. But the Hermetic teachings cautioned against this deception, revealing a truth that remains elusive to many today. The senses are skilled jailers. They provide just enough of the world to convince you of its reality, while concealing the underlying dimensions of existence. Your confinement is not due to an immutable reality, but because your senses maintain your focus on the superficial. Consider this. From your earliest experiences, you learned to navigate the world through physical perception. Pain taught you to avoid danger. Pleasure guided you toward comfort. Scents and sounds created associations in your mind, defining what was beneficial, harmful, safe, or threatening. These experiences, while not inherently negative, are limited representations of the totality of existence. They are the bait. Once you place complete faith in them, the doorway to the inner world, the world of true reality, began to close. Your eyes tell you that the sun revolves around the earth, but it is the earth that orbits the sun. Your ears indicate that a siren is nearby, but its sound may be traveling from miles away. Your skin perceives a chair as solid, but at the microscopic level it consists of vibrating energy. Your senses provide interpretations, not objective, truth-filtered, simplified data designed to maintain your biological functions. But the consciousness that lies behind those senses is the very thing that is being concealed. For consciousness exists independent of a physical body. It does not require light to perceive its existence. Hermetic wisdom teaches that the senses are tools to be mastered, not idols to be worshipped. They are instruments, not rulers. Yet, within this simulation, individuals are trained to cling to their sensory experiences as the definitive source of truth. If you cannot see, hear, or touch it, they insist, it must not be real. But how many real phenomena are invisible to the naked eye? Love, thought, gravity, electricity. Your very existence is not something you can fully perceive, only experience from within. This is the key insight the Hermetics wish to impart. You are not meant to be confined to the shallows of sensory experience. You were designed to explore deeper, to awaken the inner faculties that allow you to perceive beyond the limitations of the simulation. The simulation thrives on the majority remaining at the sensory level, identifying themselves with their bodies, their emotions, their fears, their cravings. They move through life reacting to stimuli like puppets, never questioning who controls the strings. But mastery, as taught by the Hermetics, begins when you detach from the senses and observe them. When anger arises, recognize it as a program, not as your essence. When you crave approval, recognize it as a programmed script, not the voice of your soul. Each unexamined reaction strengthens the illusion. Each moment of detached awareness weakens it. This is why ancient initiates engaged in practices that might seem extreme today: fasting, sensory deprivation, isolation. These were not acts of self-torture, but rather strategic efforts to sever dependence on the sensory world. They were training their consciousness to remember its existence prior to the body and its continued existence after the body's dissolution. They were learning to perceive with the inner eye, to hear with the inner ear, to interact with the fabric of reality without the need for physical senses. You need not renounce your senses to awaken, but you must cease allowing them to define you. They are instruments, not the conductors of your life. They are windows, not the sun. Upon realizing this, the chains that have bound you to the simulation begin to loosen. You start to remember that you are not the body seated in a chair staring at a screen. You are the awareness behind the eyes, the silent observer, the eternal player who has forgotten their role. And as you remember, the rules begin to bend, the seemingly fixed codes begin to shift, the simulation itself begins to thin like morning fog dissolving in the sun's rays. But to reach that point, you must rebel against the tyranny of the senses. You must abandon the worship of your prison's evidence and begin seeking the doorway that leads to freedom. From the time you began to communicate, you were told that truth, meaning, and purpose resided externally, in books written by others, in authority figures, in structured systems with established rules. But the Hermetic masters imparted a different truth, one that has resonated through the ages for those who are open to receiving it. Know thyself, not as a casual philosophy, but as a sacred imperative. A doorway that remains closed until you make a conscious effort to turn the key within. The simulation you inhabit is built upon the foundation of your perceived smallness, isolation, and dependence. It bombards you with images of success, happiness, and validation, all of which require external attainments: wealth, recognition, belonging. The Hermetics taught that everything you seek is already present within you, concealed by layers of false identity. Your challenge is not to conquer the external world, but to conquer the illusions that obscure your true nature. Self-knowledge is not about constructing a superficial profile of traits, hobbies, or social classifications. It is about penetrating every narrative you have been told about yourself and asking, who is observing all of this? Who am I when I strip away the masks, the roles, the fears? You're not your name. You are not your nationality, religion, occupation, or financial status. You are not your past mistakes or your present accomplishments. You are the consciousness that experiences them. You are the dreamer, not the dream itself. The Hermetic path to awakening remains relatively untrodden because it demands uncompromising honesty. It requires you to confront the uncomfortable truth that most of your life has been a series of reactions to external programming, a series of unconscious agreements to exist within a pre-constructed prison. It calls upon you to dismantle every comforting illusion and stand exposed before the infinite mystery of your being. Most individuals are unwilling to undertake this challenge. They prefer to decorate the walls of their confinement rather than acknowledge their lack of freedom. But you are reading these words because a part of you recognizes the existence of something more, a resonant vibration within your soul that affirms you were not born merely to obey, consume, and exist without truly awakening. That inner voice is ancient, carrying the memory of truth even when your mind forgets. That truth is simple. You are the creator. You are not a victim of the simulation, but the architect of your experience within it. Mastery of self equates to mastery of the simulation. Your thoughts shape your emotions. Your emotions shape your energetic field. Your energetic field shapes your perceptions, and your perceptions shape the reality you navigate. This is not magic, but immutable law. The simulation responds to the mind that recognizes its inherent authority. But the mind that remains asleep, drifting aimlessly and blindly obeying, is destined to inhabit a world it did not consciously choose. Self-knowledge transcends simple introspection. It is alchemy. It is the process of transforming the raw, chaotic material of your conditioned mind into the refined gold of authentic awareness. Each fear you confront, each unconscious habit you dissolve, each limiting belief you dispel, represents a rewriting of the simulation's code. You are hacking reality from within, not with tools or machines, but with the power of your consciousness. This is why no government, religion, or institution can grant you true freedom. They can only offer limited permissions to operate within their defined boundaries. Genuine freedom emerges when you no longer require permission to exist, to think, to create. When you know yourself not the superficial self, but the eternal self, you transcend their influence. You escape the simulation not by physically fleeing, but by transcending its limitations. That transformational journey commences not with changing the external world, but with engaging in the silent inquiry. Who am I really? Not the answer you were given, not the answer you memorized to conform, but the authentic answer, the one that burns away the layers of deception and leaves you standing in the raw, unbounded power of your being. This is the initial step beyond the illusion, a step from which there is no return. The ancient wisdom, as above so below, was not intended as mere poetry or metaphor. It was a profound warning, a roadmap, a truth concealed within the fabric of reality. Everything you observe, from the smallest ripple in a pond to the grand spiral of galaxies, reflects the same underlying forces, the same governing laws, the same recurring patterns. The simulation is not arbitrary. It possesses structure, code, and patterns that reveal the cracks in its illusion. You are conditioned to perceive events as isolated occurrences, to believe that life is a series of disconnected accidents devoid of meaning. But look closer. Why do the spirals of a sunflower mirror the spirals of a hurricane? Why does the branching pattern of your veins resemble the branching of rivers and lightning? Why does the rhythm of a human heartbeat resonate with the cycles of the earth, the moon, and the tides? These are not coincidences. They are signatures of a hidden architecture, reminders that reality is fractal, holographic, and reflective, that events in one dimension reverberate throughout all dimensions. The Hermetic masters recognize that understanding these correspondences, training oneself to perceive these patterns, allows one to decipher the code of reality. It allows one to anticipate outcomes, harmonize with powerful forces, and transform from a manipulated pawn into a conscious player. This requires retraining your perception, ceasing to view events, people, and experiences as separate fragments, and instead recognizing them as interwoven reflections of fundamental principles. As above, so below. As within, so without. Your inner world manifests as your outer reality. Fear, anger, and resentment do not remain confined internally. They broadcast frequencies that alter the reality around you. The Hermetic masters were not exaggerating when they declared that the mind creates reality. They were stating a scientific law, one that modern quantum physics is beginning to explore. Change the internal patterns, and the external reality must follow. The simulation rewards those who remain blind to these interconnected patterns. It keeps them reactive, emotional, and disconnected, distracting them with endless noise so they never perceive the harmonies beneath the surface chaos. Once you perceive the echoes, the rhythms, the repetitions, you can never unsee them. You recognize that the events of your life are not random rewards or punishments, but reflections of your inner state. You recognize that the systems of control within society mirror the control mechanisms within your own mind, the same hierarchies, the same rewards for obedience, the same punishments for dissent. This is why authentic awakening begins not with external revolt, but with internal mastery. Attempting to dismantle the simulation from the outside without understanding its governing laws will only result in exhaustion and the recreation of the same prison in a different form. Mastering the patterns, aligning your mind, heart, and energy with the deeper currents that flow beneath all things, enables you to navigate the simulation with ease, creating ripples that reshape your reality, not through force, but through resonance. The Hermetic axiom is not only a key to understanding the world, but a key to mastering it. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the mind, so the world. This is true alchemy, the transformation of unconscious existence into conscious creation. When you see the code, you realize you were never powerless. You were always the programmer, but you have forgotten the language. Now you remember, and the world around you transforms from a random storm into a living manuscript, a story you are not only reading, but writing with every thought, breath, and belief. Accepting that responsibility releases the simulation's hold. It ceases to be a cage and becomes a canvas for your creation. Many believe that life follows a linear path: birth, struggle, achievement, death, a one-way journey with a beginning and an end. The Hermetic masters understood that for those who remain unconscious, life is not a line, but a loop, a cyclical repetition that traps the soul in patterns of forgetting, suffering, and striving. Reincarnation for most is simply another layer of the simulation, a cleverly disguised hall in the prison. The system excels at creating the illusion of progress while perpetuating a cycle of repetition. In each life, you are assigned a new identity, a new physical form, a new set of cultural beliefs. You form attachments, pursue desires, fear losses, and replay familiar dramas under different guises. And upon each death, the majority of memories are erased, But the energetic imprints, the patterns, the unresolved lessons, and the unconscious habits persist. These remnants pull you back into the game, dragging you through another cycle of suffering, cleverly disguised as opportunity. This is not simply about punishment or cosmic justice. It is about resonance. The vibrational state you hold at the moment of death determines your next destination. If you die consumed by fear, attachment, or resentment, you anchor yourself to the lower frequencies of the simulation. You return, drawn by the weight of unfinished emotional business, not because of a divine decree, but because your own mental frequency attracts you to another birth, another story, another dream. Karma, as understood by the Hermetics, is not a record of good and bad deeds, but the energetic inertia of unconscious living. It is not about being punished for sins, but about the energetic imprints left by every action, thought, and emotion. These imprints shape the experiences you attract in the future. Living mindlessly, reacting instead of creating, accumulates layers of karma that bind you tighter to the simulation across generations. Breaking free is not about achieving moral perfection, but about cultivating awareness. Consciousness dissolves karma like sunlight dissolves mist. When you cease reacting and begin consciously choosing your thoughts, emotions, and actions, you begin to break the energetic chains that bind you to the cycle of rebirth. You begin to rise above the game, seeing it for what it is, a school for the soul, one that most never graduate from because they forget their original purpose. The tragedy is not suffering, for suffering can foster growth. The tragedy is suffering without learning, without remembering, without questioning the possibility of an alternative path. Instead, individuals become preoccupied with material pursuits and distractions, never noticing the encroaching walls of their confinement. They cling to identities, relationships, and possessions, as if they will provide security in a reality that is inherently impermanent. Consequently, they die with regrets, fears, and unresolved issues, only to repeat the cycle anew. Hermetics taught that awakening is the only true escape, surpassing death, escapism, and rebellion against the physical world. True liberation emerges when you remember your authentic self, not just intellectually, but experientially, spiritually, and completely knowing yourself as consciousness, not the character you are playing. Moving through life without clinging, fearing, or being swayed by sensory temptations initiates the breaking of the cycle. Escaping the simulation does not require abandoning life, but rather living it consciously, experiencing the world without becoming enslaved by it, seeing the beauty, pain, chaos, and wonder of this reality for what it is, a magnificent, intricate, holographic dream that you are simultaneously experiencing and shaping. When you awaken to this truth, the rules of the game are altered. Death ceases to be a reset and transforms into a graduation, a doorway to higher realities, freed from the cycle of unconscious rebirth. Most will never achieve this, not due to their inability, but due to their unwillingness to look, question, and remember. Yet, you're still here, still listening, still reaching through the fog. This signifies that the cycle is not inevitable and freedom remains within your grasp, waiting to be claimed. Everything in this reality is in constant motion. Nothing truly rests. The Hermetic masters understood this long before modern science could articulate it. Everything is vibration. Every thought, emotion, and belief emits a specific frequency, acting as a magnet that attracts experiences that resonate with it. You are not simply navigating a world of inert matter, but rather swimming in an ocean of energy, shaping it with every inner transformation. The simulation maintains control by keeping you vibrating at low frequencies. Fear, anger, shame, guilt, and despair are emotional anchors that bind you to the lower levels of the game, solidifying the walls of the illusion, making escape more difficult. Each time you indulge in unconscious fear or react with unmindful anger, you are tuning yourself to the static of the simulation, strengthening its influence. But vibration is not fixed. It is dynamic and responsive, allowing you to alter your frequency. Like a musician tuning an instrument, you can shift your vibration, and as you do, the entire reality you experience begins to transform. The Hermetics taught that mastering your inner state, your thoughts, emotions, and energy allows you to essentially hack the simulation from the inside. This enables you to transcend the lower frequencies dominated by suffering, scarcity, and limitations, and ascend to higher realms of creativity, intuition, and authentic freedom. Polarity is another essential key. Everything has its opposite, with these seeming opposites being two ends of the same spectrum. Love and hate are not separate entities, but varying expressions of the same emotional scale. Fear and courage, sadness and joy, peace and chaos exist as points on the same continuum. Mastery is not eliminating one side and clinging to the other, but understanding that you can consciously navigate the spectrum, refusing to be a victim of your emotions, and instead choosing to be their navigator. The simulation uses rhythm to control you, creating cycles of highs and lows, successes and failures, hopes and disappointments. You are kept swinging back and forth like a pendulum, preventing you from finding inner balance. But rhythm, too, can be mastered. You can anticipate the swings, observe them without losing your equilibrium, rise above automatic reactions, and anchor yourself in a steady, deliberate vibration that remains unaffected by external forces. This is why ancient teachings emphasize self-mastery over external confrontation, fostering internal sovereignty and vibrational coherence that render external chaos ineffective. Realizing that your internal state is primary, with the external world being a secondary reflection rather than a cause, empowers you with a quiet, unshakable sovereignty that defies the simulation's reach. You are not destined to be at the mercy of circumstances, but rather to become the circumstance, weathering any storm because the turbulence outside is insignificant compared to the clarity and power emanating from within. This requires consistent effort, ruthless self-awareness, and conscious choices made in each moment, even when external pressures seek to pull you back into the noise. Shifting your vibration transforms your perception, revealing previously unseen opportunities, aligning synchronicities, and presenting solutions effortlessly. Individuals resonating with your new frequency will gravitate toward you, while those who do not will naturally fade away. Your outer reality will reorganize itself to mirror your inner transformation. This is the secret of escaping the simulation. Not running or fighting, but rising above it by becoming a conscious generator of your own frequency. Remaining at the simulation's default settings imprisons you, but tuning your inner world to a higher octave unlocks an entirely new layer of reality with altered rules and the promise of genuine freedom. The Hermetic masters dedicated their lives to this pursuit, training their minds, mastering their emotions, and purifying their energy not to escape the world, but to rewrite it from the inside out. Now that this knowledge is accessible, your choices will determine whether you remain trapped or step into the higher game you were always intended to play. Knowledge has the power to set people free. That is why ancient texts are still with us. They were not burned, but rendered irrelevant by those who taught the world to ignore them. The keys to liberation were hidden in plain sight, while society was trained to ridicule the idea of anything beyond the tangible. An empire of distraction was built and called education. Mysticism was labeled superstition, spirituality, nonsense, and inner power delusion. But the Hermetic teachings were not eradicated. They were intentionally buried, not under the ground, but under layers of ridicule. The system does not need to burn books when it can discredit their content. It does not need to outlaw wisdom when it can make you too busy, stressed, and numb to pursue it. Your life is filled with noise, schedules, screens, and endless distractions that silence your inner voice. Deeper truths are concealed behind layers of programming that promote disbelief. You were taught to dismiss information that could liberate you, convinced that ancient wisdom is outdated, mystics are insane, magic is fantasy, and intuition is dangerous. Yet kings, emperors, and secret societies have privately studied these principles for centuries, while feeding the masses empty doctrines. Hermeticism is not merely a belief system. It is a manual for unlocking human potential, a map for navigating the matrix with clarity and control. The 7 Hermetic principles, mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender, are not abstract philosophical concepts, but the fundamental laws that govern the simulation. Learning to perceive through them allows you to bend the game to your will, aligning yourself with the source of all things. This knowledge is suppressed because it eliminates the need for external authority. Priests are no longer needed to mediate between you and the truth. Politicians no longer define your value. Corporations no longer sell you meaning or identity. A person who knows themselves cannot be controlled, and that individual threatens any system built on control. Religion without revelation, science without spirit, education without wisdom, and entertainment without substance. These are systems designed to keep you dependent, as dependency fuels profitability and confusion enables control. The system trains you to defend your own imprisonment. You argue against your own liberation, protecting the very confines that restrict you because you have never known life beyond them. But sometimes an individual remembers. They encounter a passage in a book, a whisper in a dream, or a synchronicity that shakes their perception of reality. The illusion wavers, creating a crack that allows the light of ancient truth to seep in. The moment you realize that everything you were taught to dismiss holds more value than what you were taught to respect, the awakening begins. This knowledge was not meant to be easily discovered. It was meant to be earned, not out of elitism, but because its power demands responsibility. Accidental discoveries would lead to misuse. Effortless acquisition would diminish its value. The difficult path is intentional, filtering out the curious from the committed, demanding proof that you are ready to embrace the truth. If you remain present, peeling back the layers of illusion, you are among the few meant to find it not in a temple or a classroom, but within yourself. Texts are signposts, symbols are reminders, but truth resides within your being. The teachings are not meant to save you, but to awaken you. Studying this does not require permission or a degree. The gate was never locked, but you were not told where to look. Now that you have found it, the question is not, where is the truth, but what will I do with it? Waking up is not the journey's end, but the beginning of a new one. Seeing through the illusion illuminates the vast number of people still trapped within it. You notice it in their eyes, their words, their routines, their quiet desperation, their compulsive distractions, and the way they defend the system that exploits them. Initially, it hurts. You want to shake them awake, but you remember that you were once in the same state, and no one could have forced you to see it until you were ready. This is the paradox of awakening. Awareness of the depth of the illusion coupled with understanding the fragility of truth in the hands of the unprepared. You cannot force people out of the simulation, but you can plant seeds. Leave clues, live authentically, and communicate with clarity so that your words serve as a lifeline rather than an attack. This is how the collective mind shifts, not through mass movements driven by anger, but through individual sparks of awareness igniting across the grid. An awakened mind not only transforms one life, but subtly disrupts the frequency of everyone it interacts with. Your energy becomes a transmission. Your choices create ripples, and you become a glitch in the matrix that cannot be ignored, not because of volume, but because of authenticity. You are not meant to save the world through grand gestures, but to fully remember yourself, becoming a mirror that allows others to see their own reflection and begin to remember. This is how the Hermetic path has always functioned. Initiation through presence, example, and resonance. You are not here to convert anyone, but to become such a clear embodiment of truth that the illusion unravels in your wake. Isolation may occur. The more you perceive, the greater the distance you may feel from the world around you. This makes finding others who are also awakening essential, as communities of real seekers are not just helpful, but vital. The system thrives on isolation. Sharing what we have seen breaks its hold. What is coming is not just personal transformation, but a ripple effect, a global shift in awareness that begins with individuals reclaiming their minds. When enough people disconnect from fear, shame, false choices, and freedoms, the entire system begins to collapse under its own weight, not through violence, but through non-participation and remembering who we are, refusing to play by rules we never agreed to. The system fears this, flooding the world with noise, confusion, and conflict to prevent the awakened from connecting. But this era is ending. You are not alone anymore. Living from your highest frequency attracts others ready to rise together, not as an army, but as aligned creators, not to fight the system, but to transcend it. You do not exit the simulation through death, but through awakening while you are alive, reclaiming the one thing the system cannot fully control, your consciousness. This is where the real war has always been waged, not on battlefields, but within your attention, your beliefs, your inner dialogue. Reclaiming your mind loosens the simulation's grip. The world does not change instantly. Bills remain and chaos persists, but the part of you that responds to it transforms. No longer buying into fear, it remains unshaken, watching the illusion crumble with a smile, knowing that this life is not the entire story. Exiting the simulation is not about escape, but about sovereignty. Navigating the world without being defined by it, playing the game with awareness, choosing your role, frequency, and path, knowing that you are the player, not the piece. Choose presence over distraction, intuition over conditioning, and creation over consumption. Choosing consciousness rewrites the code. Resisting the urge to react bends the simulation in your favor. This is why perfection is not the goal. It is not about superiority, but about fully engaging in the world without being deceived by its mask. Walking through the marketplace with open eyes, participating, but never forgetting your underlying identity. Freedom is not about location, but about perspective. Working, paying rent, and navigating the world are possible without succumbing to unconsciousness, as freedom is defined by how you perceive your circumstances. When you truly see, the rules change, the simulation loses its power, and it transforms into your classroom, testing ground, and creative playground. This all requires action. Awakening is a lifestyle, a discipline, a choice made repeatedly to stay conscious when it would be easier to sleep, to feel when it would be easier to numb, to ask questions when it would be easier to conform, and to lead by example. The system fears consciousness more than chaos. If you have come this far, you understand what this path demands and offers. Do not stop here. Maintain momentum and connect with our community, where we explore this path beyond the surface, algorithms, and limitations of what we can express here. If this message resonated with you, share your acknowledgement in the comments. So to bring it all together, what we've explored here is a profound possibility, that the reality we perceive is a deeply immersive simulation, and that within each of us lies the power to awaken and reclaim our true, limitless potential. It's about remembering that you are not just a player in this game, but the orchestrator of your experience. It's a journey of self-discovery, challenging what you thought you knew and stepping into a life of genuine sovereignty. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Does this resonate with you? Do you have any questions or experiences you'd like to share? Please feel free to leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation and explore these ideas together. And if you found this thought-provoking, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future explorations of these hidden realities. We'll continue to delve deeper into these concepts, offering practical tools and insights for your awakening journey.